We are back. Episode 47 of the CCHA Reporters Corner on Midwest Sports Plus. If you are a subscriber to the Bemidji Pioneer, the Sioux Falls Live, St. Cloud Live, Grand Forks Herald, any of the great forum properties, you also have a subscription to Midwest Sports Plus and vice versa, the home of all forum communications, newspapers, and publications. And we have a good one today. I'm one half of your co-host, Jared Rubedo with Bemidji Pioneer. With me is the better half, the co-host, Trent Singer from Sioux Falls Live. Trent, how we doing?
Doing good, man. I got the chance to watch a documentary that you had me watch, and I feel like we got to plug it here. This was I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but Jared told me on Monday about a bird watching documentary I had to see called Listers, and I sat down last night, watched it till about 3 a.m, and was absolutely riveted, just like Sam Darnold with his little bird app. And I can't recommend it enough. Jared was spot on, as I expected. This man knows his movies. If you don't know anything about Jared Rubedo, you should know that he knows his movies. And what a documentary. It is amazing. I'm still just like glowing about it. I was telling our guy who we had on the show today here about it too, and I'm like, I think we convinced him to watch it too.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you watch Listers, and then for the next 2 weeks, all you can talk about is Listers, and you're trying to get everybody else to watch Listers. And it's a hard sell because you're like, hey, I got this documentary for you. It's about bird watching. And you're like, really? Do I really want to watch this? And I'm like, trust me, you have to watch it. I've seen it 3 times. That's how much I love this documentary. It's free. It's on YouTube. No ads. No monetization at all. It's on YouTube. It's fantastic. And like Trent said, we did maybe convince our guest today before we started recording to watch Listers. And it's our guest today was Nathan Pilling from St. Thomas, a freshman forward, having an outstanding season for arguably the hottest team in college hockey in St. Thomas, who's won 10 in a row. They've somehow built a little bit of a cushion out of the formerly 16 race in the CCHA. And Trent, what did we get into with Nathan Pilling about?
Yeah, we talked about this hot start. They've won 10 in a row. They're now number 11 in the NPI. This team's on fire, and Nathan's been at the center of this. Guys like Alex Gaffney, Lucas Van Vliet, Lucas Wallen, they're really playing a connected game to top to bottom. I mean, you look at what they're doing in net too, whether it's Carson Musser or Aaron Trotter. This team is pretty solidly built right now, and they're going to be a tough out for everybody here in the home stretch. They have a 5-point cushion now in the CCHA standings, and like I said, Nathan's been at the center of it. He's got 23 points, including 11 goals in 26 games this season. So we talked a little bit about what's led to that start in his freshman season. He is the first, I believe only right now, CHL transfer or CHL commit, who is playing for the team this year at St. Thomas, and he's from Calgary. We talked a little bit about growing up in Canada and getting into hockey at a young age and playing AAA hockey in Calgary before he eventually made the jump to the WHL, where he played multiple places, starting in Moose Jaw in Saskatchewan and then making the jump over to Edmonton. He was traded there and then ultimately traded to Seattle, where he finished out his major junior career. Had a really breakout season, his final season last year, his age-out year in Seattle, and finished, I believe, a point-per-game guy, 67 points in 67 games. And we talked a little about that recruiting process, when the floodgates opened for CHL players to make that jump to American college hockey, what that was like for him, and just in terms of making that decision, how he ended up at St. Thomas. And we talked. We had to ask about Liam Penny Anderson Arena. Its grand opening was this year. They opened against Providence early in the season, and he was the one who scored the first goal in that arena. So we got his take on just what that was like to score a shorthanded goal for the first goal ever in their brand new barn, with that student section roaring down over top of them. And he talked a little bit about his welcome to college hockey moment, and a fun little story in practice that he had. And then, we asked about some teammates. I mean, Lucas Wallen, obviously captain on this team, has been on this show before. Got his take on how much his leadership has meant to this Tommies team, And then we had to ask about Chase Cheslock, another guy who's been on the show, but is clearly one of the top defensemen in this conference. And yeah, so we close it out with one timers. This is a great chat. We got done with our interview, and I had to kind of step back for a moment and say, wow, that was a freshman. Because that was he's incredibly well spoken for a freshman. I mean, I know they come in here a little older and more seasoned these days than they do in any other sport, but man, he's got a future ahead in the game. Whether that's in coaching or playing. Really looking forward to seeing how this all plays out for a 6'4" forward that they have at the center spot up there in St. Thomas. So a really great chat. I think anybody who's going to enjoy this one, especially if you're a Tommies fan. So definitely be sure to check this one out.
Yeah, so let's kick it over to our interview. Oh, actually, before we kick it over to our interview with Nathan Pilling, I should mention next week we are doing a mailbag episode.
Yes.
If you have questions that you want submitted or you want us to answer next week, you can email us. Probably the easiest way is to find it on my Twitter. It's my pinned tweet right now. There's some directions in there on how to do it through email, DMs. You can respond to the tweet, however you want to do it. But we want to hear from you. We're going to do a whole big mailbag episode next week. And if we even get enough questions, we can save some of them to do, make it a 2-part thing. So anything you want us to talk about, any questions you have about the CCHA, recruiting, where the league goes after this season, how the league's going to project out the rest of the season and everything in between. Send us your questions and we'll talk about them on next week's show. So, but now we will kick it over to our interview with Nathan Pilling. All right, it's time for another Reporter's Corner interview, and we were so overdue to go back to the Tommies. We brought on freshman Nathan Pilling, part of a 10-game winning streak, one of the hottest teams, not only in the CCHA, but in all of college hockey. Nathan, thanks so much for joining the show. How's it going?
Doing good, guys. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll start here, right? I mean, obviously 10 in a row is insane. But just what's this season been like for you? Obviously, it's a lot of firsts, I'd imagine, but it's probably a lot of fun showing up to the rink every day on a big win streak with a group that's just clicking right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, winning games is fun at any level. Honestly, the feeling at the rink doesn't change from day to day a lot, and I think that has to do with having a veteran team that's been through the ebbs and flows of seasons before. So credit to our senior class here, but things are good. It's been a really fun year of first for sure. Coming in, we had 10 freshmen, 7 transfers this year. So the first couple weeks of the year was definitely, I wouldn't say bumpy, but definitely like lots of learning curves, figuring out our style, our identity as a team. And then, obviously over the last month or two, things have been working. So things are good.
Well, for you personally, you're having a fantastic rookie season to this point. You got 11 goals, 12 assists in 26 games. From your perspective, what's gone right for you this year to have this kind of start to your college career?
Honestly, the focus really hasn't been on points a whole lot this year. Obviously, there's been some success with putting the puck in the net, which has been great. But I've really tried to focus on developing my two-way game this year and being a more reliable centerman, winning key draws, being an impact guy on the kill and the D zone. So that's really been my personal focus. So I'd like to think putting a lot of effort into that has rewarded me on the other side of the other rink.
I want to get into that two-way stuff a little bit later because I think it'll tie into a question I got about Lucas Wallen, but because he's Mr. Two-way in this league. But I want to get into your hockey career and how you got to the CCHA and how you got to St. Thomas first. And you're a Calgary kid. That's a hockey crazed market. Just what was it like growing up in that market when you were younger, and kind of how'd you fall in love with the sport?
Yeah, I mean, being Canadian, I think even not just from Calgary, you don't really have a choice. Hockey is everything growing up on the outdoor rink, skating on lakes, stuff like that. I grew up in part of the Northwest Calgary Hockey Association, so I have lots of friends back home that we went to school and played together, up until our midget years. So I was always a bit of a late bloomer. I think I was never, a stud on a team or anything like that till, kind of into juniors where I, developed as a player. So just a lot of fun. I have lots of friends back home that, you know, it was a great place to grow up, and Calgary will always be home.
I feel like we've had a few. We've got to talk a little bit of AAA hockey in Canada because we've had a couple other CHL transfers on the show recently too. But you played 3 seasons of AAA hockey in Calgary, including the COVID shortened season in 2020 and 2021 before you ended up making the jump to the WHL. But I'm curious to know just about those AAA years. How did those years help prepare you to make the jump to eventually major junior hockey?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I was never, obviously I played in the Western League for junior, but I was always, I wanted to play college hockey. I was never drafted into the Western League, so after that kind of goes by, you look to schools. So during the COVID shortened season, we played 6 games as a U18 club, and our year had finished. So I was listed to go play in the Alberta Junior League, but ended up with COVID. Didn't work out, so that was kind of transferred over to the next year. So ultimately ended up going to the Western League because it was a good fit and a good situation for me. But so it's kind of funny coming full circle. Ended up being a college hockey player because that was always what I wanted to do.
Okay, I want to ask you, before we get into the Western League stuff, like when it comes to making that decision at the time, which was what, 4 years ago now, 4.5 years ago, was there any trepidation in like, hey, if I go this route and this rule change doesn't happen, there is no college hockey, and it is a little bit of, I'd imagine, a bet on yourself kind of moment.
It absolutely is, and at the time there was no real inclining of there being a rule change. Growing up, there was always advisor meetings and whatever, knowing that if you go, ultimately the Western League is what everyone wants to play. Growing up, you want to go play for the best teams, play against the best players. But yeah, it was definitely a hard decision to make, having been, committed to the school route for so long. But ultimately what swayed me was going to the CHL. You sign you're signed, which gives you guaranteed schooling for every year you play. Whereas if you go to the AJ, you can't guarantee you'll be able to get a commitment or go to a school like that. So that was kind of what gave me the safe feeling of, okay, this is a good decision. And then, like I said, obviously worked out that I got the best of both worlds.
And then obviously you start in the dub by playing for Moose Jaw, and it was an interesting dub career with some trades and bouncing around. You pretty much saw the entirety of Western Canada there. But we'll start with Moose Jaw. And what was that rookie season like? Obviously, like, you talk about making that jump and you take a little bit of a risk, and but it was the start of a 4-year dub career. And what do you remember the most from that season?
I loved my time in Moose Jaw. This being a small town, if you're driving in Moose Jaw, it's 8 minutes corner to corner. So not much to do other than to hang out with the guys, which is the best part. So I loved my time there, and over my career, I got traded twice, but I think it all happened for a reason, and ultimately made me the player I am. And I learned a lot of lessons along the way. So I couldn't be happier with the way things worked and the sights I got to see. And I made a ton of friends over my time. So yeah, I loved it.
Moose Jaw. It's like the coolest name ever too for a team. Where is Moose Jaw?
Moose Jaw is 45 minutes west of Regina. So I mean, for those that don't know, Saskatchewan is the joke. The joke is you can watch your dog run away for 2 days. It's so flat. So there's Saskatoon and Regina, and then a bunch of small towns sprinkled in there. So I had an amazing billet family in Moose Jaw. The Campbell family, I have a lot of love for them, so they made my time great there as well.
I'll have to ask Nelly about Moose Jaw because he's a Sask guy. You were traded twice though in the WHL, and it happened the first time in your second season when you went from Moose Jaw to Edmonton. What do you remember most just about that trade? And you're a pretty young kid at that time, and making that jump and heading to Edmonton.
Yeah, it was definitely a quick turnaround. Obviously, being from Calgary, Edmonton's just a 3-hour drive away, so it was really close to be close to home. And all my extended family lives in Edmonton, so it was nice to be around them. Obviously, this was the year after the Oil Kings had won, so they were in a full rebuild. So definitely a lot more opportunity play wise, which was great, a great experience because Moose Jaw, they were a very strong team. So yeah, lots of learning experience. I ended up getting hurt I broke my ankle, so I missed the back half of the year after that. But that time away from the game definitely helped me have a little more perspective on junior and learn lots of lessons. So
How'd you break your ankle?
I of all places, Rogers Place, the rink with the best ice. I caught a rut and slid into the boards and ended up breaking my ankle, but skated off, so we're all good.
Oh man, it's
As one
brutal.
does in the game of hockey.
Yep.
I want to ask you about the second time you got traded, because trades are a part of junior hockey. They happen at every level, and it's just some kids have to go through it, but not a lot of kids get traded twice. And but you're one of them. Was there a point in that where you're just like, man, like, does anybody want me to be a part of this thing down the middle, like as a cornerstone, or am I just, hey, this is my lot in life and I take it and go and take it and run with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to tell anyone I was a bit of a suitcase in junior, and that's okay. But ultimately, I was part of a deal that moved the Sachin brothers to Edmonton, and once again a big opportunity in Seattle to be a leader and be a focal point in a room and have lots of chances to play at 19 and 20. So it was a lot of fun. There's definitely moments of of wondering if if I have value as a player, but I think that ultimately puts a chip on your shoulder. And was a big motivator going into a situation that I like to think I'd make the most of in Seattle. So, like I said, lots of lessons along the way, but ultimately helped me become a more well-rounded player.
Definitely. And I think in the back half of that season, when you got to Seattle, you really started to break out, at least from like an offensive production standpoint. I mean, you had 23 points in 38 games with the T-Birds that year. And, was there anything that happened in that when you got to Seattle that allowed you to take more of a jump, in terms of on-ice production as a player?
I think it was, their style of play really tailored to my game. I'm a very north-south player. I like to, I'm a bigger guy, so I like to use my size to my advantage. I'm a shoot first type player, so their style of play definitely helped with, molding me into the player I am. But ultimately, I think it was the coaching and the relationship I had with the coaches there. Matt Marquardt at the time, Matt Odette was our head coach there. He really brought made a personal relationship with me and helped me mold me into a better player.
Well, you played your age out season in Seattle last year and were almost a point per game guy. You had 34 goals, 26 assists in 61 games. But I think more importantly, Seattle snuck into the playoffs in the final spot in the Western Conference. And what do you remember the most about last season?
That was so much fun of a year to play a ton. Obviously, I have a ton of friends off that team. But that second half, I think it was a great learning experience to finally buy into what our identity was as a team. We were a strong physical team, very direct and north-south. So, that ultimately led us into the playoffs and had a really good push against a top team in Everett at the time. So that was what I remember most for sure.
Well, you mentioned that, and I want to ask about that because it was your first time making the playoffs since your rookie season in Moose Jaw. You had 3 goals, 4 assists in that 6-game series against Everett. What do you remember just about that series that led to such a good postseason showing for you in what were essentially your final games in the WHL?
The biggest thing I remember was it was a battle. The only way our team had a chance of beating a powerhouse, talented team in Everett was to grind them down, forecheck, attack their D. So that buy-in to that system of a game that we ended up doing and taking them to 6 games was huge. And I'd like to think playing those hard, tight-knit games, led into my eventual, early on success in the CCHA. So, yeah, that would be the main thing.
Almost a year ago to the day is when you committed to St. Thomas. And I believe you were also the first CHL kid to commit to St. Thomas as well. But walk us through your recruiting process. And obviously the rule changes last year and it opens up the opportunity to kind of bring it back full circle like you talk about with, going to college. And but for you, why was St. Thomas the right fit for you to continue your hockey career?
Yeah, I mean, it was a whirlwind of, the first couple months of that season, hearing rumors and, the goal before the rule change was, was to sign a pro contract. And because if not, you have to go back to U Sports at home and use your scholarship money and try work things out from there. So having the opportunity to extend my runway as a player before wanting to become a pro eventually, that was the biggest eye-opening thing that this new direction leads. So it was a lot, definitely daunting. I give my advisor a lot of credit for helping filter a lot of the noise and a lot of the things I didn't need to hear on game days and stuff like that to make sure I was playing my best. But ultimately, the choice to St. Thomas was too good to pass up. Coach Leon Hayward, built a really good relationship with me throughout recruiting. Obviously, our building here is outstanding, so that's obviously a draw. And then I think just the rapid progression of the program here, from coming from a D3 team to the group of seniors they have here now, like I said, it was far too much to pass up.
I don't know that we've asked this enough, Jared, to people who have been on the show, but it's certainly a fascinating question. I'm curious to know from your perspective, and maybe even from kind of what your teammates' perspective too. With that team in Seattle, when the NCAA adopted the rule change to permit CHL players to be eligible for the NCAA, what was you and your teammates' initial reaction to the rule change? I mean, when did you start to think that college hockey was the best next step for you to continue your career after the WHL?
Honestly, there was a lot of uncertainty. No one really knew what was happening. There was, the odd commit from a guy here and there. So it was a lot of word of mouth through team to team and from, guys that are friends from hometown. So it was a lot of just uncertainty. So, for me, I ended up committing to St. Thomas late January. And that was kind of by design because we really didn't know what to expect and, how it would work with, at the time the goal was, we want to jump to pro hockey immediately. So, just uncertainty really.
I think it's interesting looking back at kind of the last year and change with the CHL kids too. And obviously the first wave of kids are kids who aged out, right? The ones that don't have CHL eligibility left. And, you're part of those kids. And a lot of CCHA kids, the few kids, there's only a few kids in the CCHA who didn't age out and left the CHL early. But then it starts shifting towards those non-age out kids, and obviously the big ones like McKenna and Porter Martone and all of them. And what was that side of it like with the kids who had eligibility left and stuff? I'm sure you had teammates there who were starting to sit there and have to weigh their options, maybe options that they never thought they'd have to weigh in the middle of a season when you guys are still trying to push for an ultimate goal of making the playoffs and winning a WHL title.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from my experience in Seattle, we did a really good job of trying to eliminate as much as that distracting noise as we could, because I mean we were on a run towards the end of the year, and that was what was most important. So I know for some teams, like depending on their situation, if a guy was wanted to commit to a school and still had time left in juniors, that was a conversation that they were going to have with their team at the time. So I definitely lucked out being 20, that I didn't really feel like I was, leaving a team behind early, like some of these younger guys were at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was, like I said, just a lot of uncertainty, and guys didn't really know what the landscape would look like. Obviously, college hockey is in a better place than ever now, having a new influx of players come in. So I think it's made for one of the best leagues in the world here, having the amount of talent pool. Playing college hockey. So it's exciting to be part of that new wave to come in.
What's the biggest difference between the CHL and the NCAA just through your first semester and a half so far?
I think obviously playing less games was an adjustment. But the detail and commitment to the work ethic and grind of every day was the biggest difference. In junior, obviously you play 68 games a season, whereas here it's, we're going to end at, roughly in the 30s. So the consistency of showing up every day, ready to go, ready to battle, that was definitely eye-opening for me.
Well, we've got to ask you about the unveiling of that new barn, Lee and Penny Anderson Arena there. During your recruiting process, I'm sure you were pitched, right? I'm certainly shown pictures and renderings of what it was going to look like, but how did seeing it for the first time in person just compare to, what you saw, like kind of the vision that was pitched to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was virtual renderings and whatever over my time being a recruit. once I had committed, I came down to St. Thomas at the end of our season, and we got to walk through with hard hats on and kind of see the skeleton of what was to come. And it was pretty breathtaking at the space that they had built. So yeah, I'm sitting here now. The basketball court's in now, so watching the guys shoot around here, like it is so special
cool.
for our group to have this rink on campus here. I mean, our campus is gorgeous. It's beautiful. There's not a walk over 10 minutes anywhere. It's any of the guys' houses or stuff like that. So it's an amazing resource that the older guys of our team deserved far before they've got it. So we're just happy to have an amazing place to call home.
Quick, before Trent gets to one of the coolest questions, but what were your thoughts on the St. Thomas Ice Arena? And you show up to campus, right? You see all these beautiful renderings of the building you play in now, but then, all right, first practice, you're in a high school rink and it's 20 degrees in there and you're freezing and it's cold. Like, it's got to be like, where am I right now?
A little bit, yeah. Like, we'd obviously heard, it's not the best, but they make it work. But it was scrappy for sure, but no, I loved it. It was awesome. The guys, that was their home for years. So a lot of respect to those guys for battling through and having that be their home. So, it's 15 minutes off campus. Like, it wasn't ideal for sure, but I'm glad I got to experience it because it gives me much more respect for all the effort that's gone into having Lee and Penny Anderson rink.
You'll find no bigger fan of St. Thomas Ice Arena than this guy right here.
I love it.
Jared
I love going
it.
to games there.
Honestly, it gets a lot of hate, but you can't find a barn with much more home ice advantage than that rink. That's for sure.
I just like it because you could hear. Well, I did have a space heater when I went there because it was so cold, but I just liked it because I covered Bemidji State and you could hear every single word Rico and Saratori would say in that rink because it was like you're so close to the benches, and I was always a little bit of a tricky hot mic situation with those two. So
couple
I remember
Italians over there.
Oh yeah, well, and filming our practices, we'd have a guy up top running the camera, and you could just talk to him here from you to me, from the benches all the way up across the rink. So I loved it.
Best concession prices in town too.
Definitely.
You were the first one to score a goal in the new barn. I mean, what do you remember about that play? And it was a big student section there that night they got to celebrate with.
Yeah, we joked. No one really had a shorthanded goal on their bingo card for the first one, that was for sure. There were definitely lots of bets between who was going to get it. Wallen putting the most money up for it. But it was, looking back and seeing the videos of the student section erupt, that goal was so much bigger than me. It ties to the alumni and all the donors that helped make it happen, and Coach Rico for having the vision and all the effort he put into to giving this program a home. So I'm so happy to have a part of that. And like I said, that goal is so much bigger than me putting the puck in the net.
I've seen that clip probably 50 times, and I just love seeing the glass cave in over the ice when the students are going nuts. Like it's one of the best student section videos you'll find in college hockey all year. It is. You could see how pumped up people were for that one. I can't imagine what it was like being on the ice for that.
Yeah, we ended up winning that night, which was great. And we jumped into the student section after, and we joked we really hope Mr. Anderson wasn't in the building to see the glass was halfway touching the back of the net when we all jumped in. So that was one of the best nights ever.
I love asking this to players, but did you have a welcome to college hockey moment where it's oh, this is a little faster, a little bigger, maybe you took a big hit that's okay, I gotta keep my head on a swivel here?
Honestly, I think it was at St. Thomas Arena. One of our first battle days, I got dropped by Alex Gaffney, our fifth-year forward, and I'm twice his size. And it was early on in the day. I think that was I talked earlier about the consistency of showing up every day. I think that was one of the moments of okay, I'm here now. So I'm not sure if he wanted to give me a good look because I was one of the new freshmen or whatnot. But no, that was definitely my moment.
A little bit of an initiation.
He's a transfer too. He had to kind of make his hay there too. Hey, I'm here too. I got some people I got to prove it to.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we want to ask about a few of your teammates. And the first being the captain, Lucas Wallen. We've had him on the show before, and what a gem. What a story. I don't know if you're familiar. A null 3 guy who made his way to the Division I level, and here he is.
Oh yeah, he's
3-year captain.
He's not shy at all to share his story. That's for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. It's you won't find it though. I'm quite literally. I don't know that you'll find a story like that in college hockey, but that is who he is, right? What kind of a leader in the locker room has he been? And in a lot of ways, how have you ever played with a guy like that before?
I've certainly never played with a player or a leader with that much respect. His voice carries so much weight in our room. I mean, you can hear from everyone in our organization. Like, he is our bus driver every night. His work ethic is through the roof. He demands so much respect from himself, and I think that bleeds into our identity as a club for sure. So, if you're having a tough morning or a slow day, just look at Walls, and you'll be right back to where you should be.
Have you ever seen an all 3 hockey game? Like, it's hard to explain how different it is compared to just the null. And the fact that that's where he started his junior career, and this is where his collegiate career is ending up to, and he's going to have a very long professional career when it's all said and done as well. Like, it's just remarkable that he came out of the null 3, and that's no disrespect to the null 3. It's just a very different level and a very different brand of hockey that's very tough to get D1 players out of.
Yeah, I mean, he's the epitome of a St. Thomas hockey player. The work ethic he's put in to become the player he is from not having much is outstanding.
Another one I want to ask you about is Chase Cheslock. We had him on the show. He said single-handedly the funniest quote I've ever had.
I was up on the podium for this one.
I know, yeah, and I couldn't believe that he compared playing a game against Bemidji State to a Revolutionary War. And if I remember correctly, you said you guys have also been watching some documentaries leading up until that point. And so he was feeling pretty inspired. But, I mean, he's another one who's an absolute gem. He wears a letter, tough kid, commands so much of, the play from the blue line. What's it like having him in the room and having him back there on the blue line?
I mean, we joke he's Mr. Secondary Assist this year. No goals for him yet, which blows our minds because he is a hell of an offensive player. Ches is, he's a leader in our group for a reason. The minutes he logs, the sacrifices he makes day in and day out is amazing. So I'll go to battle for Ches any day. Maybe not on the front lines like what he was saying, but Ches is awesome. He's someone I really look up to personally.
What an amazing quote. Jared had to share that with me immediately after it happened too.
I was dying laughing. It was so funny.
It's so good. This is obviously St. Thomas's last season in the CCHA, but beyond the scope of just winning games, do you guys feel like you have something to prove in winning the McNaughton Cup, and or the really the Mason Cup before you leave for the NCHC next season?
Honestly, I think the guys having a sniff of having that opportunity last year. We're well reminded about how close they were last year, and for the sake of our senior group, like I talked about, there is nothing more we would love to do than to raise a banner in this building the first year and ultimately take that cup with us on our way out.
Definitely. And that's a good point you brought up too with the guys last year. And, it is different this year. I mean, you guys are eligible to make the NCAA tournament. And, I think the Mason Cup game getting there was a huge step in the right direction. But does it feel like there's more at stake this year, being that you guys are eligible to make the big dance?
Yeah, I think there's definitely noise, about our program and where we are in the rankings and whatnot. And definitely some expectations, but there's no expectations outside our room that we don't have for ourselves, and ultimately more. I for one have so much belief in the group we have and in our brand of hockey, and our belief in culture that we're capable of winning anything and beating any team on any given night. So being a part of that culture and that group day in and day out is super exciting.
We're going to get into some fun ones here before we wrap it up. And we call these one-timers. We ask these to every player that comes on the show. And because I don't think you've played in every CCHA building yet. I know you still got a trip to Bemidji. You still got some other ones you got to knock off. But where's the toughest place you guys have played in the CCHA so far?
I mean, the easy answer was Tech, obviously. Their student section was amazing. The biggest thing I thought about was their band. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
I'd never been a part of a an atmosphere with that band, so that was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm gonna. Usually we'd ask like, where's the toughest place in all of college hockey? But you've only had a few non-conference series, so I'm gonna switch it up and say, where was your favorite place to play in the WHL on the road? And I'm sure you got to see all of those different buildings and all those different fan bases.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer is Calgary, playing at home, playing at the Dome.
Yeah.
But other than that, I loved playing in Kamloops. The Blazers have a super nice rink, the Sandman Center. It's right on the water. The Road Hotel's right next door. They got good food. The ice was always great in Kamloops, so that was always a fun one.
Do you have one in college hockey though, like outside of the CCHA that was pretty intriguing to you?
I mean, we got to play in Grand Forks this year, which was a lot of fun.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, like I said, their band was blue line to blue line. Their production before the game on their blue line walkouts was unbelievable. And obviously growing up, you hear about, the Sioux fans and the team. So that was a lot of fun. That was a really cool experience.
No doubt.
It's not even a college hockey rink. Like, it's a pro experience from everything the Bemidji guys tell me. It's like, it's just a different world up there.
Yeah, I definitely think our start was a little slow, and I think that's credit to us being taken back a little bit.
Well, you're a Calgary guy, and so I'm certain this may go a certain way. I don't know. I don't want to assume anything, but is there a player at the pro level that you've always admired the most, or maybe somebody that you've tried to sort of model your game after?
Yeah, growing up in Calgary, I was always a really big fan of Jake Neighbors.
Nice.
A straight line forward. Uses his body well. He's an offensive producer. So growing up, get to watch him throughout minor hockey and now obviously NHL was a lot of fun. And I actually grew up an Oilers fan. So another guy I gravitated to was Dylan Holloway. So those two are kind of the main guys I like to model my game after.
You're not the first person to say Jake Neighbors, and I think it was Connor McLennan said Jake Neighbors too.
Did he?
Or he had a connection to Jake Neighbors. So it's like the second or third time we've had someone drop a Jake Neighbors reference on this. But who's the most talented player you've ever played with? It could be at AAA, it could be in junior, it could be college. Just some guy who jumps off the page is the most talented kid you got to share the ice with.
I had the privilege of going to San Jose's development camp or their rookie showcase, and I was on Celebrini's team, so that's an easy pick. But I actually played with. I get a little slack for it all the time. Braden Coots in Seattle. I get slack because obviously the World Juniors were here, so every time he had a point or a big night, I'd let the guys know. So he's a hell of a player, very offensively gifted, but his work ethic is crazy. So he'll be an everyday NHLer in the very, very near future.
Absolutely.
How about this one? This is a fun one. It gets guys jogging their memories because you got to go back and really think about this. But how about this? Who's the most underrated player that you've ever played with? Somebody who maybe just kind of went under the radar in a way. It could be somebody you're playing with now, or like you said, somebody in juniors.
I mean, off the top of my head, I could say Coots again, just because he's still a young guy. Hasn't broke the pro threshold yet. But even like Denton Matejchuk, I know he's obviously in the NHL, but he was an unbelievable player at 17 years old for us at Moose Jaw. So he's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if he's an NHL All-Star at some point in his career.
Last one, and it's a two-parter, and it's my favorite question we ask every show. Who is the best golfer on the team, and who is the biggest sandbagger on the team?
I had a little bit of a taste with the guys golfing this earlier in the year. We had a team retreat, and we went to a golf course and did some team building. The best I'd have to say is Aaron Trotter, but I would never say it to his face. He's a good golfer.
We talked so much golf with Trotz when he came on the show last year.
Yeah, I would say the worst is Gaffney, Alex Gaffney. and like he's not even a sandbagger. Like he said he was bad, and he was even worse. So I would say Gaff. Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Nathan, thank you so much. This was
Thank you, man.
fantastic. Best of luck this weekend. It's a big one. Obviously, it's this is kind of where you make your hay in the CCHA in the second half. So best of luck to you and the boys, and keep it up.
Will do. Thanks you guys again for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Once again, thank you to Nathan Pilling for joining the show, and thank you to our producer, Cordell Wright, the great Cordell Wright. To watch the show and see clips and highlights from this episode with Nathan Pilling, head on over to Midwest Sports Plus, the home of the CCHA Reporters Corner. For an audio-only version, subscribe to the CCHA Reporters Corner on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow us on Twitter at TrentSinger and at Jared Rubedo BP. You can check out our work at BemidjiPioneer.com and SiouxFallsLive.com. One more thing. Quick shout out to Minnesota. It has been a really, really tough time here for a lot of people, myself included, who, I'm trying not to say it. I'm trying to say it without saying it, because we have some corporate overlords who have some opinions on how we say things. But if you are partaking in Minnesota, congratulations. I'm very proud of you. And please stay safe. This is a really, really, really difficult time for a lot of people in Minnesota. But you guys are doing great work. And whether it's behind the scenes, whether it's public facing, I know this is a hockey show and we love doing a lot of hockey stuff, but I think it's important to say this thing right now as someone who lives here, who has a lot of people here who are directly impacted. And it's heavy. I think you can kind of hear it in my voice right now, how heavy it is. And it's a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. But at the end of the day, I think we're all here for one thing, and that's for us to watch hockey and have a good time with this stuff. But I think at some point that has to come a little bit secondary to bigger things in hand. So again, if you are partaking, please stay safe. Please know your resources. Please know what you can and can't do. Have a plan. Talk to people. Get help if you need help. Everything. It's heavy, and you should be very proud of the work that you've done so far. But it's not done yet. So keep it up.